day, everyone. I am Cuaton.
I am Mico Ray Benito.
And today we're going to talk about pure and conditional obligations under the obligation and contracts subject. So we all know that according to Article 1156, that obligation is defined as a juridical necessity to give, to do, and not to do. But it doesn't end there. Obligation covers a very broad information, and today, specifically, once again, we're going to discuss pure and conditional obligations. So, what is pure obligations? According to Article 1179, every obligation whose performance does not depend upon a future or uncertain event or upon a past event unknown to the parties is demandable at once. So very sabotable na si Genie. When you say pure obligation, it does not depend on a future or uncertain or the past events. That basically means that this obligation can be demanded at once or performed immediately. It doesn't have any condition and it has no term. Or when we say in the bank, why much will it be late? Every obligation which contains a resolutory condition shall also be demandable without prejudice to the effects of the happenings of the event. So we're going to tackle the resolutory condition in the following slides. Conditional obligations. According to 1181, in conditional obligation, the acquisition of rights as well as the extinguishment or loss of those already acquired shall depend upon the happening of the event which constitutes the condition. So this is the complete opposite of pure obligation. This one depends on a certain event. And the acquisition of rights and the extinguishment or ang pagkawa kuno sa already acquired na nimo depends on the event, which is, as you can see or as you can observe, na completely opposite just a pure obligation, because the pure obligation does not depend on an event in order for the obligation to be performed. Okay, so for formalities, let us read the definition of pure obligations according to the book here at Cuaton. Pure obligation. An obligation whose performance does not depend upon a future or uncertain event or upon a past event unknown to the parties and which is demandable at once. There is nothing to exempt the obligor from compliance therewith. So here in the screen, we have here a much more summarized version of this in the book. So an obligation, so a pure obligation is an obligation that is demandable since it has no condition and there is no specific date stated and mentioned. So here we have Mico for the example of pure obligation.
An example about pure obligation is Genie promised to deliver a specific calculator to Marie. Another example is Marie promised to give Genie a 1,000 tuition fee on demand.
Alright. So as you heard about this example, there is no condition. So dili ni nato dyan matawag na conditional. Because if ato ni dyan ibutang sa conditional na version, Mr. Benito, I will say na what was that? Genie promised to give my calculator to Marie if Marie will give me a let's say a worksheet paper. So na ako ay condition, which is dili ni dyan mao ang definition sa pure obligation. Nana ni dyan na belong sa conditional obligation, which is I am going to give something and then the other party will have to abide the condition that I or according to the third party or by chance na ijang i-fulfill. Now, so I'm going to read the definition of conditional obligations according to the book. Conditional obligation. An obligation where the acquisition of rights as well as the extinguishment or loss of those already acquired shall depend upon the happening of the event which constitutes the condition. So here we have here a more summarized version of conditional obligation. Conditional obligation, where it is made up to depend upon a future and uncertain event, either by suspending it until the event occurs or is certain not to occur, or by making its extinction dependent on whether or not the evidence occurs. Okay, so to further enunciate conditional obligations, here we have Mico for an example.
Okay, so an example about conditional obligation is Jenny will give a specific calculator to Marie if Marie will give a worksheet paper to Jenny.
Yes, so that basically means that in order for me to give my calculator to Marie, Marie have to give me a worksheet paper. So, but pasabot ana na ay condition. Kumbaga, na ay condition in order for me to give my calculator to Marie. So now, let's proceed to the conditions under this obligations. So, condition under the law. A future or uncertain event upon which the effectivity or extinguishment of an obligation or rights subject to it depends. So there are two requisites. We have the futurity and uncertainty. So according here in the book, we have two classifications of condition. So we have, as to the effect of obligation, we have the suspensive condition and the resolutory condition, which will be further explained by Mr. Benito.
So here we have the suspensive condition. A suspensive condition is an event until which declaration of the obligation is suspended. Upon the fulfillment of the condition, the obligation takes effect. So when we talk about suspensive, it suspends the effectivity of the obligation because the jurisprudence teaches us that it will certain perform an obligation till the happening of the condition. So basically, no fulfillment, no obligation. So an example about suspensive condition is I will buy Jenny an iPhone if she will pass the upcoming final exam of Oblicon. So this is suspensive because it suspends the demandability of the obligation. So if Jenny will not pass the upcoming final exam about Oblicon, then I have no obligation to buy her an iPhone. So that's all about the suspensive condition. Again, with my own example about the suspensive condition, I will buy Jenny an iPhone if she will pass the upcoming final exam about the revision of contract. If she will not meet my condition, then here comes the resolutory condition, which means it is an event on which the obligation is terminated. The fulfillment of the condition results in an extinguishment of rights arising out of the obligation. So, basically, it is the opposite of suspensive obligation. So, otherwise, the obligation takes effect at once. If agad there is an obligation right away, but it will terminate upon the happening of the event of the condition. Again, with the two classification of condition, which is the suspensive condition and resolutory condition, if suspensive condition fulfill, it arises the obligation. If it is the desultory condition that is fulfilled an obligation, it will terminate or extinguishes the obligation. So that's all about the two classification of condition.
Alright, so now let's proceed to origin of conditions. So here in the book we have three origins of conditions, namely protestative condition, casual condition, and mixed condition. So now I will define the protestative condition. Makes the execution of the agreement depending on the event that either one of the other party have the power to hinder.
So
Here we have Mico for the example.
okay, about the example of protestative condition is I will lend you my homework if I can study tonight.
Alright, so Mico said, if I can study tonight, I can lend you my homework. So one of the other party have the power to hinder or manipulate the situation or the condition.
Yes.
Alright, next we have the casual condition. Is on which depends upon a chance, not within the control of either party to a contract. Mico, for the example.
The example is I will take down note if the teacher will send the PowerPoint presentation.
Alright, so if the teacher will send the PowerPoint presentation, that basically means that both of the party doesn't have the power to hinder or to manipulate the
Yes.
condition because it is upon the teacher who will send the PowerPoint presentation. Alright, next we have the mixed condition. So it is a type of condition in which the existence of an obligation or liability depends on an uncertain event of Mico.
Okay, an example about the mixed condition is I will lend you my homework if I can study and if the teacher will send the PowerPoint presentation.
Alright, so there is an uncertain event at the end of Mico's example. So it is
Yes.
either if I can study or if the teacher will send a presentation. To conclude,
Your obligation has no term and condition, that making them immediately demandable.
while conditional obligation depends on specified condition. Conditions can be suspensive or resolutory, positive or negative, possible or impossible. These topics will be reported by the other groups. Thank you so much
so
for
much.
listening.
That's all.